Hey guys, welcome back. It's Neon. We're going to talk more about Netflix and how some people are postulating that Netflix might be the next blockbuster video. They're not having a very good year at all. They're not having a good summer. Subscribers are down, stocks plummeted, shows are getting canceled. A lot of popular series like The Office are leaving Netflix to go to other streaming services. It's kind of a mess right now, so we're going to talk about that in this video. Before we get started, thank you so much to everyone who subscribed. If you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It helps the channel tremendously. We've seen a great amount of growth in the last month or two, and we really appreciate it. We want to keep bringing you more content, talk about stuff like Netflix, talk about stuff like Star Wars and anime. We really enjoy it. We really enjoy connecting with all of you, so please do that. Okay, so before we get started with the bad news for Netflix in general, let's talk about Tuca and Bertie being canceled. And this is kind of indicative of how Netflix works and how we speculated that maybe She-Ra is in the same predicament right now, where they really have to make a case to renew the show for another season or two. Tuca and Bertie, they made a big deal about it when it dropped. I've never seen it. It looks too freaking weird. For me, I mean, this is not something I'd be into. But the show was canceled after one season, and the series creator came out and said that none of it makes a difference to an algorithm. That's it. Netflix, it's very kind of mysterious how they decide which shows go and which shows stay, because they don't really deal with Nielsen's ratings. They don't deal with advertisers. So they just have to kind of guess, like, who's watching the show, how much watch time is there, is this show really worth keeping around based on the expense? And of course, you know, animated series are much more expensive than live action series usually. So, you know, they're going to look at that and be like, is it worth sinking millions and millions more dollars into doing another show? So this is coming from Engadget. Tuca and Bertie is gone. Even a stellar cast and team of BoJack Horseman producers led by creator Lisa Hanwalt couldn't save the animated series. Tuca and Bertie from Netflix's Axe. I think they're going to be trimming a lot more shows, and we're going to talk about this in the video, especially the expensive stuff. The streaming company announced that the series starring Tiffany Haddish and Ali Wong would not be back for a second season. While Tuca and Bertie won't have a second season, we're proud to feature the story on Netflix for years to come. This is kind of important. This is Netflix's business model. They could technically just put out a single season of a show and not have to consistently put out new content. To them, they're like, oh, we put 10 episodes out. It's going to be on the streaming service for years. People can binge it. We get the watch time. That's really all we care about. It's not like, you know, broadcast television where they have to constantly come up with new episodes to make the advertisers happy. So I've never seen it, but it did look very much like BoJack Horseman, centered on two 30-year-old birds, Bertie and Tuca. The apartment-dwelling friends live in a colorful BoJack-like world where humans exist alongside talking animals. Hanwalt pointed out on Twitter that the show was critically acclaimed. Well, it doesn't matter if it's critically acclaimed. You know, there's a lot of things that are critically acclaimed that are not all that popular. It has repeatedly been called one of the best new shows of the year. She suggested that the cancellation came about because of Netflix's secretive programming system. None of this makes a difference to an algorithm, but it's important to me and the way I want to continue making art in this world. The decision is surprising, considering that Netflix recently launched its own animation studio and no doubt invested a lot in getting Tuca and Bertie off the ground. As THR points out, The Hollywood Reporter, the streaming company weighs viewer figures versus costs and might let low-rated shows hang around if they're relatively cheap to produce. Again, this is important that they will let a low-rated show hang around if they're cheap to produce. Animation is not cheap to produce, and Netflix, being in the financial position that they're in right now, they might start cutting corners. Because they're not doing well. We did a previous video where we talked about Netflix lost 130,000 subscribers in Q2. They lost $17 billion in value in one single day. Netflix is not doing well, and I don't see this trend reversing immediately because there's going to be a lot of competition, and CNN is actually calling it out. We're going to talk about some of the things that might chip away at Netflix And, you know, is it possible that they become that which they fought against, which is the next Blockbuster Video? Could Netflix become the next Blockbuster Video? You know, it's possible. It is possible. I know, you know, people think that they're too big to fail, but, you know, the problem with a company of the size of Netflix is that you have to keep generating massive amounts of revenue to be sustainable. And I'm not really sure that Netflix is going to be able to do that, especially with all the competition coming in. So CNN Business, Netflix is about to snap its worst losing streak in 5 years. And they talk about how, you know, they had a slump. They said the longest losing streak for Netflix shares since March 2014. The stock fell for 11 consecutive days. To put that into context, Netflix show Orange is the New Black, one of its first original hits, was still a few months away from premiering its second season, the last time Netflix had a drop like this. The 7th and final season of Orange is the New Black will drop this Friday. During the 2014 slump, the stock lost about 8% of its value. This losing streak has been far more unkind. Netflix shares have plunged nearly 20% over the last 9 trading sessions. Again, they've lost $17 billion in value. Investors are nervous that Netflix's weak global subscriber additions in the second quarter are the start of a troubling trend. Even more concerning, Netflix actually lost 126,000 subscribers in the United States between April and June. And this is right after the company jacked up its subscription price by $2 a month. So 2 of these things are going to address right away. They're going to try to pick up subscribers overseas, and we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about maybe what caused some of the people to jump. Maybe it wasn't just a price increase. Maybe it was politics. Maybe it was politics. And this plays into it too. They're no longer the only streaming game in town. So Disney Plus is coming, Apple TV is coming, HBO Max is coming from Warner Media. They still have a lot of exclusive shows, but let's face it, they're not all good. There's only like 2 or 3 shows I watch on Netflix that are exclusive that I actually really like. Stranger Things is one. The Umbrella Academy is another one. Some of the anime series they have on Netflix. But for the most part, you know, a lot of their shows just aren't that good. They're just not that good. So some analysts think last quarter's results were an anomaly. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's going to be a lot more options for consumers pretty soon. You know, I mean, look, one of their biggest hits is actually The Office. I mean, Netflix built its business model on the backs of other television networks, other studios' content. And then they sort of became the competition. They used to be a platform where all of these studios could park their content. And then they decided they wanted to be a publisher too. They wanted to be a producer. They wanted to make their own original content. So naturally, everybody saw them as competition now. You know, they saw them as competition. So because of that, a lot of people are pulling their content off. And NBC Universal's pulling The Office off. The Office is actually one of the biggest hits on Netflix. That's going to do a lot of damage to Netflix retention. The Office is leaving. Friends is leaving. Both of those shows are sort of Netflix mainstays, and they're both going to competing streaming services, which is going to suck for consumers, because now, instead of just buying a Netflix subscription and being able to watch all of this content from all these different studios, if you want Disney's content, or you want Warner Brothers content, or you want NBC's content, you got to go buy a separate service. And NBC's is coming out in 2020. So they said in June, all 9 seasons of The Office will be on their streaming service exclusively in 2021. So that's going to take, you know, a chunk out of Netflix too. Then we've got Disney, and we've got HBO Now, which is going to have Friends, you know. So they need to have more big hits, and they just haven't had the hits. And I'm sorry, but Tuca and Birdie, you know, it's probably very expensive, and it's very niche, and it's not gonna bring in the numbers that they need to bring in. You know, when they're losing all these sitcoms, it's not going to bring them in. It said investors were overestimating Netflix's pricing power and ability to drive further adoption in key developed markets, especially given the looming competition from legacy media. Friedman said he thinks the stock will go down even further. So Netflix has hit rough patches before. Yeah, but they didn't have the competition. As it transitioned from a DVD rental service to a streaming media company, Netflix had some growing pains. They recovered, But now CNN Business, are they the next Blockbuster? Just as Netflix helped lead to the demise of Blockbuster Video, other media and tech companies could one day kill Netflix. This is entirely true. Investors' fears of Netflix's eventual demise may be a tad overblown. However, the company could fall a lot further when you consider that the stock is still up 20% this year, even after its recent slide, and shares trade at a nosebleed valuation of nearly 100 times 2019 earnings estimates, so a little caution is advisable. We think concerns around impending competitive launches will keep a bit of a lid on shares, at least until we see the effect of competing services early next year. So he's saying, in other words, Netflix could tread water for the foreseeable future. Yeah, if they don't get more original content that's good, they need more Stranger Things. You know, they need more Orange is the New Black, and they just don't have it. They had a few breakouts, but, you know, people joke all the time that Netflix is full of a lot of filler crap that people just aren't buying. So let's look at what they're going to try to do to fix it. Now, they jack the prices up. I personally think they're going to start running ads on Netflix. I think it's coming pretty soon because they've maxed out. They've maxed out on US subscribers, and they're probably going to hemorrhage more people. I mean, if people watch Netflix for The Office, or they watch it for Friends or whatever, they're gonna ditch Netflix and go to Universal. You're not going to have people buying 5 or 6 subscription services a month to get everything, because at that point you're going to be paying as much as you pay for cable. You know, and it sort of defeats the purpose of cutting the cord. And then you have to have a more expensive internet package. If you're going to use Netflix as your primary television, then you're going to have better internet, because you're going to get capped, especially if you're on something like Comcast. They're going to cap you if you're watching TV on Netflix all the time. I mean, in our case, because we literally work on the internet and we do use Netflix and Hulu for television, we have to buy a business class internet package from Comcast, which sucks because we're paying like over $200 a month for internet. So at that point, you know, you're not really saving money. The only reason we do it this way is because, you know, we do all these videos. We need to have a better internet package anyway, but still, most people aren't going to do that. So we talk about where Netflix could pick up subscribers, and there's been a lot of talk about them picking up subscribers overseas. And I think a lot of the content they're creating is actually being created with an overseas audience in mind. Now, they've said before that like India is a big potential market for Netflix. So they're going to introduce a $3 Netflix for a select few people in India. Now, BGR.com is trying to downplay it. They're trying to downplay it. Netflix didn't have a great quarter, but it was hardly due to a mass exodus because of the price hike. There might be more to it than just the price hike. There are a lot of things going on here. Instead, Netflix is simply running out of new subscribers to add in major markets like the United States, because so many households already subscribe to it. For that reason, Netflix must look elsewhere if it hopes to boost subscriber numbers, and a special new plan that launched on Tuesday could be just what the company needed. Here's the good news. Netflix just launched a new streaming plan that costs $3 a month, making it 70% cheaper than the company's least expensive plan in the US. And the bad news, you can't have it. You can't have it. The new plan is available beginning today in India, where subscribers can now choose mobile-only streaming for 199 rupees a month. At Wednesday's exchange rate, that works out to $288. The plan allows users to stream any and all of the content on Netflix's India catalog, but only to one smartphone or tablet at a time. The plan does not allow subscribers to stream to a computer or television. Why don't they offer something like that over here? They might. I think when Disney Plus comes out at $6.99, you're going to see a budget cut Netflix compete with it. I really do. It seems underpriced. It's actually a very smart move for Netflix. The Indian market is one of the biggest smartphone markets in the world. Many people there don't even have computers. Instead, they use their smartphones for everything, including Netflix. Since mobile streams in the country are typically lower resolution than streams to a TV or PC, the content is generally less expensive for Netflix to deliver. So, yeah, I think you're going to start seeing some budget cut Netflix packages as they desperately try to beat the bushes to reclaim some lost revenue. I think you're going to see more cuts to shows that maybe they don't perform well enough to warrant another season, like Tuca and Birdie. I have to wonder what's going on with She-Ra. We've talked about this before. It seems like right now DreamWorks is doing everything they can do to try to shore up interest in She-Ra with toys and with bringing them to PowerCon, etc., etc. And I think they're trying to boost their numbers on Netflix. However Netflix, quantifies a success, I think they're trying to do it to make sure they get a 4th, 5th, 6th season, because I don't think the show has really been the, I don't think it's really been the breakout hit that they were hoping for. Attacking the original fan base wasn't a good move, to do that right out of the gate. So a lot of people just dropped She-Ra. But other than Tumblr and Twitter artists and like channels like ours, very few people are even talking about She-Ra at this point. So that gives a pretty good indication of where the Netflix She-Ra show is in the pop culture consciousness. LA Times, again, talking about the failure of Netflix this year. Netflix is having a long, cruel summer. They're wondering if they're going to be a Starbucks or a Forever 21. Stock prices fell. One stockholder sued, and media pundits came out of the woodwork to say, "We told you so. Told you that the spending spree could not be sustained forever, that too many of its original series lacked the critical and cultural impact of early hits like House of Cards and Orange is the New Black, which ends this week. That competition from an increasing number of streaming services would take a bite out of its library. That only so many viewers will put up with all those subtitles. That signing everyone from Ryan Murphy to the Obamas was all hubris and no business plan. That the new habit of canceling shows after 3 seasons is at odds with its own binge model. That if Pop TV gets a hit or an Emmy nod out of its recent Netflix acquisition, one day at a time, heads are going to roll. The only thing Americans love more than a highly successful brand enterprise is a highly successful brand enterprise that stumbles, especially a brand like Netflix, which in less than a decade has morphed from the ultimate symbol of low-effort leisure into the flagship for the frenetic and competitive cycle of an endless television production that threatens to drown us all." I'm not sure when Netflix became the company so many people love to hate, but I suspect it was somewhere around the time older folks discovered what the term Netflix and chill actually meant. Having the name of your company become a verb is a heady thing. When it enters into the lexicon as a euphemism for sex, you would do well to remember Icarus and prepare for a fall. Or at least stop sending out press releases crowing over your latest recruit from the dwindling ranks of broadcast television. The quest for world domination looks bad enough on Disney, and Netflix has zero plushie factor. Although Netflix did just release a long list of kids shows, is this coincidence? Reading all the Netflix loses subscribers headlines with their cackling "the end is nigh" subtext was a masterclass in our love-hate relationship with success. So Netflix is more like Starbucks or Twitter, a successful but in an eye-rolling way with occasional outbursts of backlash. Starbucks is now shorthand for vanilla consumerism, and Twitter has its own section in the Mueller report. Oh my god. So yeah, this is really interesting. Everybody's after Netflix right now. So one thing we did not bring up in our previous video, because I had honestly forgotten about it, was that a lot of people said, a lot of conservatives said that they were going to stop their Netflix subscriptions because of Netflix's politics. That anti-abortion activists are boycotting Netflix over Georgia heartbeat bill, and they said they'll never exchange babies' lives for money. So there were a group of conservatives too that said they were going to boycott Netflix. So add this to the lackluster shows, to all of the streaming services that are going to compete directly with Netflix within the next year or two, to their ridiculous price hikes, and yeah, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. I think when the dust clears, Netflix will still be there, but it will be there in a diminished capacity. It's going to be one of several streaming services, and I really do think that you look at the deep pockets that NBC Universal Comcast has, and NBC Universal, being owned by Comcast, they definitely have a stake in this, because Netflix is killing cable. It killed cable. So for them to come back and be like, yeah, we're gonna kill Netflix, I mean, for them would be just, I mean, they would have some very smug satisfaction in helping take down Netflix. And you better believe between them and Disney that they're gonna do everything they can do to put Netflix in their place, and that's probably what's gonna happen. I really do think that if there's only gonna be one leader in the streaming wars, 5 years from now, it's not gonna be Netflix. you know, they just don't have the content. They were built on the backs of other people's content. So I think that, you know, NBC or HBO Max or Disney will probably be the leader in streaming content, you know, 5 years from now. And my money is actually on Disney because they've already got Hulu. You know, they could beef that up. You know, and I hate to see Disney rule everything, but it's very possible that that's what's going to happen. So yeah, there we go. There's where Netflix is right now. The entire internet is kind of kicking them when they're down. I guess so are we, but they did grow too fast, and the spending spree is going to end pretty soon because they're really going to have to tighten the belt, which is going to be a double-edged sword because they're going to save money in the short term, but long term they're not going to have content that's going to bring people to the service. But I would look for them to be a little more picky about the kind of shows that they greenlight at this point. They need a new Office or a new Friends, and Tuca and Birdie and She-Ra are not really going to bring people to the platform. So I would look for them to do more live action shows, more sitcoms, you know, and less animated stuff, which is a shame because, you know, Netflix actually has had a lot of good animated series. They've had, you know, The Dragon Prince and Hilda just in the last year. Both of those shows are really, really excellent. But a lot of their really good animated shows don't get the press that the mediocre or bad ones get, and I think it comes down to the studio actually working on them. Dragon Prince, in our opinion, is the best original Netflix animated series out there right now, and it's not getting nearly the press that She-Ra did, that you know, Tuca and Birdie gets, and I think it comes down to PR. I think they're a smaller studio and they don't have, you know, DreamWorks backing them up, so they can't you know, broadcast the shows out there. And I hope that Dragon Prince does wind up finishing its story arc, because it is a very, very good show. But I do look for Netflix to tighten the belt. So there it is. We'll keep you posted on the situation with Netflix here on Clownfish TV. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll comment on stuff that interests us as it comes up. This has been Neon. We'll talk later. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.